Good morning.
Good morning.
From the new seated on the floor position.
Yeah.
It's always about trying to get the right angle and the least glare. It's a happy Father's Day to anyone in the UK.
Who's a father?
Who's a father. And if you're not, you've got a father. Yeah, well, let's kick off. It's our regular monthly music sharing session. Starting off with a lovely limited edition, what is it called? Screen printed cover. This is the Linkwood album. I think it's called System. This is number 15 out of 50. And basically I came across this track called Tears, which features Reggie Watts, who's kind of an improvising artist, I guess, a vocal artist, with a really beautiful falsetto voice. Anybody who checks out Reggie Watts on YouTube will know what a great voice he has, and really represented well on the track Tears, which is a kind of version of the Roy Ayers Everybody track. Yeah, sounded really good.
It sounded excellent. I'm not sure what the connection was. There was something about the sound of, I think there was the synth sound from Roy sampled on that track. Maybe think a couple of sessions ago I showed the Vibes from the Tribe Anthology Volume 1, which is a Japanese vinyl reissue of a whole range of great tracks from the Tribe label. And I played a track called In the Moog, which is what it sounds like, or In the Moog rather, not In the Moog. Howard McKinney track on here, which is a very old sounding, really does not sound like a kind of independent jazz track at all. It sounds like a kind of synth freak out. Really. Yeah. To describe it.
Really great. Never heard it before.
Yeah. Anyway, both these volumes are really, really good. They sound great as well.
We moved into, again, I'm not entirely sure what the connection was, but it just felt like playing it. This is Journey to Love, Stanley Clarke. I think it's about his second solo album. We played Silly Putty, which just an incredibly funky tune, but I just remembering how innovative the sound of Stanley Clarke's bass playing was at this particular moment, which I think was 75, maybe 76. Yeah, anyway, just a great album. Jeff Beck's on this, Chick Corea, John McLaughlin, Lenny White, and of course, you know, our session fave, George Duke, featuring heavily. Great keyboard solo on this.
Never need any
Clive
excuse.
Solo,
Clive, yeah. Never need any excuse to play Weather Report, and played the track Between the Thighs, which is, I think, possibly even my favourite Weather Report album, which is Tailspinning, which was their third or fourth. I can never quite remember what the order was. But the only record with Nduku Chancellor playing on it. In fact, the only time he ever played with him is on this record, actually. So yeah, Tailspinning, great. I'm always, although as much as I love Jack Apostolic, I really love the period before he joined, actually, as my favourite time. So Weather Report, Tailspinning, classic.
Now, every session we have, John tends to give me at least one CD of tunes that he's been listening to. And a couple of sessions back, he put a track on the CD of this guy, who is Anthony Joseph, who I'd never heard of before. And there's a big picture of Anthony Joseph there. He is, I think he's Trinidadian. Anyway, based in the UK, and this album, which is called Time, trying to get rid of the glare here, is produced by another session fave, which is Michel Ndegecello. And it's a really great album. Some fantastic, kind of unusual instrumentation and grooves, with some very kind of powerful spoken word and sometimes some singing over the top. And we listened to the track called Girl with a Grenade.
It's a really good record. Something there reminded, we've got a lot of glare coming.
Got a lot of glare, you've got to
angle it.
Angle, John. It's all about the angle.
That's all about the angle. So we didn't need much excuse to play a Dr. John track, really, and went for my favourite track off the Grigri album, which was his first album as the Night Tripper, called Dance Flambeau. And I just remember the first time I heard this record, I think I was still at school, actually, just thinking it sounded like it was coming from another planet or something like that. Just lots of weird... I mean, you know, the two lead instruments on here are basically mandolin and arco bass, you know, which is not really typical for a rock record at the time. Anyway, great, big loss. Read his autobiography if you can. It's very entertaining, actually.
It also sounded sort of completely contemporary.
Completely contemporary.
Even though it's from 68.
Yeah.
This, I don't know, people probably know that this has come out recently. This is an album of unreleased, a double album of unreleased J.J. Cale material curated by his wife. It's called Stay Around, and if you like J.J. Cale, he somehow seemed to sit quite nicely after Dr. Jahn.
Yeah. There's a bit of swamp in both of them.
Bit of swamp. We listened to a track called Lights Down Low. Yeah, both John and I were reminiscing about the time we saw J.J. Cale. We didn't actually know each other, but we both went to this gig at the what used to be the Hammersmith Odeon. A really, really odd gig where I think the house lights stayed on for the whole gig, and there was a safety curtain, and that kind of... Halfway down that sort of appeared, and there was no lights on the stage at all.
Yeah.
And no one knew who J.J. Cale was. It was just all these musicians sort of sitting down, grooving gently. It's a very odd gig. Anyway, great album.
So, stayed with J.J. Cale for one more, actually, off the Troubadour album. Played the track Let Me Do It To You, which is just an amazing groove, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds great bit of syncopation as a James Brown track or something like that, actually. Really good. So, never knew, I mean, I always loved J.J. Cale, actually. It just kind of fits a particular kind of place for me, I think,
and for me.
Great stuff.
Moving on to some Eddie Harris from the album I Need Some Money, the title track I Need Some Money, which features no less than two different players on the 6-string bass. We've got Rufus Reid and also Bradley Bobo, and also we noticed Ronald Muldrow, dad of Georgia Ann Muldrow, playing something called the Git organ. And yet again, just remembering what an innovator Eddie Harris was. And all of these albums can be picked up extremely cheaply, and there's always really interesting stuff to listen to. Also has one of my favourite dance tracks, which is Get On Down. Absolute stunner.
I think I probably bought my entire Eddie Harris collection for £1.
Right.
I mean, they really are, just so nobody buys them. Really.
No.
It's crazy. I'm not sure again what the connections were here. I think we were freestyling a bit early this time, actually, but went for the Rolling Stones, who we don't often play at sessions, actually. And I think what is still my favourite Rolling Stones album, The Exile on Main Street. And played, what did we play? I can't remember what we played.
I can't remember what we played.
Completely forgotten. Played Soul Survivor off here, which also, I think there was a vague connection episode. Dr. John was playing on.
That's right. Dr. John was playing. Yeah. Well, the connection was staying in the same year, which was 1972, and I've had a little bit of an exploration of the bass player called Clive Coleman, who I think again another Trinidadian, I have a feeling, but based in the UK. Played with Joe Cocker, played with Jeff Beck. Playing with Jeff Beck on this album. Also played on another album that I'll share later on in the session. Not the most exciting album, but some great playing from Max Middleton. There's also Cozy Powell on the drums, Bob Tench on vocals, and Clive Coleman on the bass. We listened to the track called Ice Cream Cakes.
Last trip down for a session to Southwold, there's a local, basically very unpretentious kind of second-hand record store.
It's still there?
Faversham, still there.
Oh, in Faversham?
Yeah.
You just said Southwold.
Did I? Oh,
yeah.
God, okay. So connections, my weekends away. And picked up, I think I've got all the Little Feat albums now, but picked up Dixie Chicken on vinyl because I didn't have it before, and played off it, played On the Way Down, which is the track written by Alan Toussaint. Always been a big Little Feat fan, just think they sound great. Saw them live at the Rainbow in the mid-70s and they were extraordinary in London. Yeah, great band.
Sounded good, sounded very
Dixie
good.
Chicken.
Next up was some David Axelrod. I think I'd watched a video that James Buttery had put up recently where he'd been gifted this particular album, and it inspired me to go and have another listen to it. What a weird album it is. Produced by Cannonball Overly. We listened to a track called Get Up Off Your Knees, which is the first track on side 1. What's very unusual is all of the bass lines seem to be played by George Duke on a synth, but it's kind of, you know, big band orchestration with a bass synth. Yeah. So that's quite an interesting starter for 10.
Kind of almost like a country rock sound.
Yes.
It's typical in a way. It's weird and it's typical Axelrod, isn't it?
Typical Axelrod, yeah. Good album.
Yeah.
Like it.
Talking about unpretentious record shops if you're based in London or you visit London regularly, it's always worth having a trip down to Putney to a record shop called Soul Brother, which is a really old school soul, R&B, jazz record shop, very unpretentious, really, really good place. And I was very pleased to pick up a copy of this reissue of the first Azimuth album. Azimuth are a 3-piece kind of fusion band who went on to be very successful in the 70s.
Did they change their spelling?
They did, yeah. And this was their first album recorded in Brazil. Great stuff, very, very spacey synth sound, really interesting kind of rhythm, kind of slightly inspired by Brazilian rhythms, but also as much by Herbie Hancock and all the other people that listened to it at the same time. And played the track Estrada dos Dois, or Dos Deuce.
Quite sort of spacey.
Very spacey. And this is a really nice record. They also just, the label who put it out, which is Far Out Records, have just put out a collection of demos and outtakes from the same kind of period as a double, which I've got on the way, I think. But anyway, yeah, so Azimuth and also Soul Brother Records in Putney in southwest London. Really great little record shop.
There was something about the melody on that track which sounded like it was about to break into the lead line on People Make the World Go Round, which again, regular watchers of this channel will know. We've shown multiple versions of that tune over the years. This is a version on CTI from Freddie Hubbard from the album Polar AC. Another very moody version with some lovely string arrangements from Bob James. Yeah, sounding great.
And some kind of Echoplex electro piano from George Cables.
That's right, yeah.
I had a Freddie Hubbard in the box on CTI, so I thought I'd get it out, which was his album Keep Your Soul Together, which was the last one he made, I think. Not the last one he released, but this one came out afterwards, but this was the last one he recorded for CTI. And this is when he got his own band. A lot of the artists on CTI were getting fed up of not being able to bring their own bands into the studio and always being told by Crew Taylor who they had to play with. So this one, he brought most of his own band in, people like Junior Cook, saxophonist, Ray Penman, the drummer, and played the track Brigitte, which is a bit of a kind of classic. I think it's almost become a kind of late standard, really, from that album. Kind of starts off as a ballad and then moves into a kind of mid-tempo. Usual great playing from Freddie Hubbard on there as well.
Well, definitely one of the finds of the year for me was from the Hatter's Hall, sort of second-hand everything shop round the corner from here. This is the box set of I think this is the first volume, isn't it, of the Loft compilation that
Newphonic.
Newphonic put out, which I have a CD of. But this is a beautiful four records and a lovely booklet, although the font is kind of absolutely minuscule. It used to be the same size as the on the CD, but some great pictures of David Mancuso, who, for anybody who doesn't know, was a sort of legendary New York DJ who pioneered a nightclub really in his own loft in New York, and also pioneered playing on a very high-end hi-fi system. Didn't mix. He'd always let each track run to the end before he played the next one, but he was very, very into sound and sonics and music. And this is, you just don't ever see this, so this seems to be worth hundreds of pounds, and I only paid 35 quid, so I'm rather happy with this.
Very good.
Not that I've got any plans to sell it, but they're also lovely masters of all the tracks.
Somebody who was associated with the Loft, but who did mix, was Larry Levan, and of course he's also best known to be associated with Paradise Garage in New York as well. And Jeff, he did a extended mix of Plain Love, which is a kind of okay mid-tempo track by Jeffrey Osborne, produced by George Duke again. We were getting George Duke Day completely. And he did a massive extended mix of dub mix of that, which is about 11 minutes. If you've not heard Larry Levan, he's kind of very, very musical. From that whole period of extended mixes and dance music, he was one of the most musical of all, actually.
From the Paradise Garage.
From Paradise Garage, yeah.
Yeah.
So Plain Love, Jeffrey Osborne. Though Jeffrey doesn't really sing on that track.
No, he does a bit. Just reissued on the Groove Line record label is this also a New York dance classic from the New York Community Choir, a gospel choir. And this track is called, actually the track is called I'll Keep My Light in My Window. It's also got another great tune called Express Yourself on the B-side. Printed, it's 12-inch half-speed mastering. Sounds really fantastic. Possibly one of the hits of the session.
Yeah, definitely the hit of the session. So our last mention of George Duke was the fact I played Reach Out, the extended version of Reach Out, which was from his Guardians of the Galaxy. Was it Guardians of the Galaxy?
No.
Guardian of the Light album. Or Guardians of the Galaxy. They were
That's
a
a film.
raccoon and a boat.
Yes.
Of other people. Marvel. And played the extended version of Reach Out, which is worth it. It was a great synth solo from George Duke towards the end of it. But it's almost like a kind of post-disco kind of ecstatic dance music, really.
Yeah.
Really kind of, with a stunning production. So that's it for George. No more mentions of George Duke.
No, but a mention of Judy Mowat, one of the I3s, backing Bob Marley. I think definitely her first solo album came out in, late 70s, I think, and the album was called Black Woman. Rarely featured as a drummer is Freddie McGregor, who seemed to have a great hand in the production of this. Seems to be playing lots of the different instruments. Weirdly, it sort of had a little bit of a UK sound, but it's certainly all produced in Jamaica. And great album. Picked it up at a record fair not long ago.
I kind of remember her being around in London during that time quite a lot, but I'm not sure whether that was to play or just to be there. I had some reggae 7-inches to bring with me and left them behind. So we had to go for somewhere completely different. Actually, we had to go to Ethiopia, and we had to go to Malatu of Ethiopia, who was a jazz and kind of soul and funk musician around in the mid-70s in Ethiopia. Few collections. I think he's still playing, or still was playing quite recently involved with the Quantic people, I think, and doing stuff with them. Or certainly collaborating with some UK musicians.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I've got one of his albums.
And this was his first record to be released in America, sponsored by Ethiopian Airways. It has on the bottom of it as well. And I played the track called Mulatto, kind of mid-tempo, kind of rolling grooves, slightly unusual kind of chord sequences and just unusual structure really to the whole thing as well. Nice, kind of very, very mellow African jazz funk really.
Staying with the vibes and inspired by the Flabbergasted Vibes blog, which John and I both subscribe to.
It's a great blog.
This is Roy Ayers' Ubiquity and the album Change Up the Groove. We listened to the title track, Change Up the Groove, featuring great drums from Bernard Pretty Purdy and great keys from Harry Whittaker, amongst a cast of other great musicians. Just, really funky jazz with great vibe solos is probably how I would describe this. Not his most well-known album, but worth picking up if you come across it. There we go. Lovely.
And there's a change of mood. I think about either the last session or the one before, I played the latest Lambchop album. But for this one, I went back to the one before last, and I've only just got this on vinyl. And there's a very long track called The Hustle, which is quite extraordinary, actually. I mean, it really bears no relation to anything they'd done before that when it came out originally. Very long electronic track, minimal singing, a little kind of tribute to Nick Drake towards the end of it in terms of a theme.
Which I didn't pick up on.
Well, I didn't pick up on either until Yeah, very unusual. I mean, kind of, he keeps on changing. Kurt Wagner keeps on changing what he's doing, really, as well. Great artwork on the front by him as well. So Lambchop fans will know this, but it's a great record, actually.
And as John pointed out, it has a sort of similar effect as the sidelong track Healing by Todd Rundgren.
Yeah, which is an amazing revelation that was a couple of years ago.
Now, I'm sure lots of people will have seen this. I'm not sure. I haven't seen anyone show it yet. This is the new Flying Lotus album. As ever, incredible sort of cover. Beautiful gatefold. Only literally got this yesterday, so barely listened to it. But so far, absolutely loving side 4, which is the side that features Thundercat and Solange, and we listened to the track called Land of Honey. Incredibly sort of dense production going on here, an awful lot to listen to, lots of guests all over this.
David Lynch as well.
David Lynch, George Clinton, Thundercat, Solange, yeah.
We were thinking the cover looks like it's dangerous. I think
It does,
dangerous.
yes. I'm sure that's quite deliberate.
I think it is as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, first album for 5 years from Flying Lotus. So a lot of thoughts gone into this, and it's kind of quite conceptual, I think, as well. And I think David Lynch actually plays quite a significant role in the concept.
Does he?
Yeah.
Great stuff. I did actually see Flying Lotus do a DJ set at the Roundhouse.
Did you?
It wasn't. I just kind of looked in. I was in the building when it was on. It was kind of all right. It wasn't kind of nowhere near as interesting. I mean, I think he's a record person,
Right.
not a live artist. I
No.
think really. Actually, it was kind of all right. I'm not sure what got us from Flying Lotus to Pat Metheny, but we might have even had a break actually. But this is the first Pat Metheny album on ECM, which is still, I think, my favourite actually. I've been listening to some of the more recent Pat Metheny records, and I kind of admire them, but don't particularly kind of like them. I think. Whereas this has just got a very warm feel to it, and played the classic track Face Dance off it. Also, I quite like him with that ECM sound as well. It kind of works with his music. Incredibly young-looking Pat Metheny and the band on the back as well. So,
another new album here. Again, not entirely sure what the connection was with Pat Metheny. This is a Brighton-based band who are now a 3-piece called Jewy. This is their latest album called Mind Barn, and I guess they're kind of. They sound a bit like a sort of. Psychedelic version of a cross between Crosby, Stills and Nash and Yes, I think, a little bit. Anyway, it's been mastered by Phil Brown, who did the classic Talk Talk and Mark Hollis albums. Sounds very, very nice. I think it's all recorded on analog tape. And yeah, I think there's people in the VC who will like this, but it's very, very under the radar. So
in fact, the little logo on the back is
actually like the
like the
original.
Yes logo.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah. Sounded to me a little bit like the band Autumn Defence, which was formed out of basically one half of Wilco's band.
Oh, really?
Actually, yeah, it does sound a little bit. It's got which has got a very kind of English prog sound to it, a prog pop sound.
Yeah, probably.
Mark on his radio show, which there'll be a link to underneath the video, played Ida Lupino, the Paul Bley version of it, which is a great Carla Bley tune. And it made me pull out this Carla Bley record, Dinner Music, which is very strange because half the bands were people from the free jazz kind of end of things, people like Roswell Rudd, Mike Mantler, Carlos Ward and people. And the other half were the band's staff who were making big waves at that time as a kind of funk R&B band. And so they basically put the two bands together, and it came up with a great album actually, even though the staff didn't have any idea who they were going to be playing with evidently when they went to the studio. So played the track Ida Lupino with a great, basically it's one very long Eric Gale guitar solo that goes through the whole of the piece.
Very
Can't
nice.
go wrong with Carla Bley.
And another purchase from the local Hatters Hall record shop, if you can see this. A band I'd never heard of, Hummingbird, UK, just in the sort of period a couple of years before punk happened actually, when the sort of pub rock scene had happened. Like people were kind of just making a lot of sort of fusions of rock, soul, funk and blues, it seemed. This band, again, features quite a few of Jeff Beck's old band, Max Middleton, Bobby Tench, and again the bass player Clive Coleman, who I saw on YouTube. This is what kind of got me interested. Also the drummer Conrad Isidore and a guitarist called Bernie Holland. And we listened to a track written by Conrad Isidore which featured some very ethereal backing vocals from Linda Lewis. It was called I Don't Know Why I Love You. No, it's called Island of Dreams, in fact. Let's get it right. Yeah.
Sounded good.
Yeah,
they made 3 albums.
They did, yeah.
Yeah. And played a CD at the end, which
Good God.
I haven't done for a couple of sessions actually, but wanted to play this track by Moacir Santos, who's a Brazilian musician, composer, who made 3 albums for Blue Note, which is the first one, which is called Maestro, and basically a combination of Brazilian musicians and American musicians like Harvey Mason's on it and other people like that. John Hurd, the bass player. Very nice, really great sounding, interesting, kind of not at all like, very different to something like Azimuth, much more kind of Brazilian influenced music. Really interesting compositions. And also these incredibly cheap Japanese CDs, they've got fantastic transfers actually. I mean, they really sound amazing. Best soundings. Ironically, saying earlier on that CDs are dying and people are actually making CDs that sound good all of a sudden. so too late. Anyway, Moacir Santos, so it's very expensive on vinyl, this one, from the album Maestro. Mid-70s, Blue Note, really good record.
And we finished with a rather unexciting album cover. This is The Wizards of Ooze, which I seem to remember came out in the late 90s. The album's called The Dipster. We listened to a track called Gravitude, which had sort of slightly reminded me of Hall & Oates, I think, in the sort of vocal harmony, but beautiful horn arrangement. Great track. Check it out, Gravitude.
Yeah.
And the session, we, again, for anybody who's following the hi-fi journey that we're on, we were using this time a moving coil DL110 cartridge, which was sounding particularly excellent.
Yeah.
And as John said, a link to the All Points radio show underneath this video. Please tune in if you like the kind of diversity and the eclectic selections that we share. It's a bit like that on the radio every week. And we're having continually
Convulsions.
Yes, the UK isn't having a very odd time.
Yeah.
There we go.
And our friends in the United States will share with our pain, I think.
I think you will.
Yeah, but we're getting there.
John and I might be wearing large blonde wigs next time.
I think we will, yeah, definitely.
Okay, see you later.
See you later.